talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, my name is Chuck, nicknamed Vancouver, of Vancouver, Washington, USA. Welcome to Talk Shoe, call number 120297. This call is being recorded, and anything said by either one of us will go into the public domain. Thus, everyone is entitled and encouraged to copy or republish any or all of this MP3 recording file. You do not need permission. No notification or attribution is necessary. To find more of these public domain audios, go to the top right corner of any TalkShoe.com screen and search for Vancouver or 120297, or click on the purple top left live now button to see if the show is presently underway. The time out here in the West Coast of the U.S. is roughly 10:20 p.m. on Saturday, July 7, 2012, and I have on the phone with me Newsman of Talk Shoe Show. Sorry, I should have had this ready. Number 99598. He's got his show on Talk Shoe. It just ended a few minutes ago. He's on every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Newsman, what do you have to say? The ball's in your court, man.
Well, thanks for having me on there, Van, or Chuck. I'm really glad to be talking to you finally after all this time. And, you know, it really is very interesting because this whole concept of the targeted individual is one that I never really had a name for, but was one that I have experienced before over the years in viewing different people as they've been targeted. But I wanted to ask you specifically, Chuck, first off, when was it that all of this did start for you?
Well, when I noticed it, actually, was in April of 2000, right about tax day here in the USA, April 15 of 2006, and I knew I was being screwed with. It was totally amazing, and I didn't catch on, and I'm a good internet searcher, but I didn't catch on until May of 2010, so it went 4 years, and the search results were gamed, but I hope I've answered your question. So I caught, it started in April of 2006, I finally caught on in May of 2010. That's how secretive it is, and that's how difficult it was for me to find out about it.
Now, before you were being targeted in 2006, were you politically active in any way?
No, I would say I've never been politically active, but I have been outspoken. Generally, if I didn't like what a corporation was doing, I would say it. If I didn't like what, I thought it was like the American thing to do, to speak your mind, but it turns out that that can work against you. On the other hand, I do think it does go back to my much earlier years, like my 20s. In other words, 40 years ago, possibly. And you can't prove it. You can't prove that things like that were happening. But I'm talking about like 3 accidents in the span of a month and a half. That everybody's going to say that wasn't their fault. But these accidents were setups. What I'm telling you is, and the individual was a family member that was carrying my insurance, and I think he was a TI. And so it's kind of like they got 2 for the price of 1.
Now, when you were being vocal about corporations, what was the extent of that?
Well, getting on the internet, and I'm not going to mention the corporations at this time. I want to answer your question, but I do want to tell you, like, I came up with a list of about 6 or 8 incidences of times when I've been outspoken, and I kind of arranged them in descending order. The extent of it was, though, that I was like on the internet, and I was ranked. I mean, I was really hot. I was angry, and I was letting the cat out of the bag.
Okay.
Using the internet.
And you were using the internet. You were were you posting on message boards? Were you sending emails to these corporations? I started out. I posted on the internet on a web page, which is still there. The last time I checked, and I never said anything that wasn't
100% true. I really never, but they don't care about truth. What they care about is shutting you up if you're speaking out about them. So I used, go ahead.
These corporations, they were pretty big to be.
It was essentially one big corporation, one very big corporation, who I was very outspoken about, and they were totally gaming the system, and they were totally doing it in plain sight. I mean, anybody who had their head where the sun shines could see what was going on, but they were so clandestine about it that they were really good at kind of like hiding it. I mean, they just made use of every capability in their powers.
Now, when you were being vocal about this, how vocal were you? I mean, was there more than this? I mean, there had to have been something that pushed them over the edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got, there was kind of a person that talked to me about it via email, and he just said, well, you know, you don't want to talk about this, you can't prove it, you know, this and that. And every time that person talked to me, it angered me, you know, because he was essentially just shut up is essentially what he was saying. And every time he did that, I improved the document. I probably improved the document I don't know, 6, 8, 10, 20, I don't know how many times. I really put a lot of effort into outing them.
Okay. Did these documents, did they make a lot of exposure on the internet? Did they get a lot of play or a lot of press?
No, but the fact that they're out there, the fact that it was out there, it was essentially one document that continued to improve. And, you know, look, I'm not a professional writer. I've definitely improved that over time. But the fact that it's out there that people can search on, you know, today with a Google or what have you, they can Google it, and it'll come right up.
And when people look, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. When you were looking at these, when you were discovering that these strange things were happening to you, what were the strange things that you were finding out?
Let me give you an example. Like on the night of tax day, 2006, I got home. I was living in my RV at the time, and I got home to my RV, and my lock on the RV had been jimmied with. It was kind of like somebody had put sand or salt or something in there. It was really hard to get open. I was lucky to get it open, and when I got in there finally, I heard this high-pitched, whiny squeal. I'd never heard anything like it, and it was hard to, you know, and who'd have known whether that was associated with it or not? You don't know. You know, you don't get a registered letter saying your lock got jimmied with, you know, but that was the kickoff. And another kickoff is like when I would go to the video store or to the grocery store, where I was actually harassed. I mean, the way I looked at it, that was the term I was looking for on the internet. To me, it was harassment. It wasn't stalking. Stalking is something that weird guys do to their ex-girlfriends, you know. I was not being stalked, but it turns out that that's what it's under if you look at it on the internet.
Right.
Am I answering your questions? Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're answering the questions. So your lock was jimmied, and you were being stalked. And
at the video store and the grocery store. At the video store and the grocery store.
Right. And what were these things? What kind of things were happening to you at the video store and the grocery store?
Let me give you the grocery store, because that is the most damning. And that was a place where I went so often, you know, like 2 or 3 times a week, I'm guessing. I never kept track, but it was like every time I tried to take a spot in the parking lot, somebody would swipe it away just last second, and I wanted a certain kind of a spot. And what I find out later is that they surveil you. They know what you're looking for. I wanted the kind of a spot where I could pull through, where I could pull in one way and out the other, so I could actually leave going head out. That would be the first thing. The second thing, and I spent too long on that, the second thing was, as I was walking into the store, somebody would walk out behind a pillar at the last second, and I would go, excuse me, because I'm kind of a polite guy, and they would never make eye contact with you. The other thing is, when I got in the store, there were a couple of 3 products that I always bought, and there would be somebody like reading a label on a can or something, and they would push their cart right in front of me at the last second. And just as I got to the end of that aisle, somebody would walk out right in front of me just as I get to the end of the aisle, and I go down the next aisle that they knew I was going to go to because I was going to buy that product every time I went to the store, and that sort of thing. And if this would have happened just one time, no big deal. But this happened like every time I went to the store. Like, I don't know, 8, 10, 12, 14, 20. I don't know how many times I didn't keep track of it. And pretty soon you get to realize you're being stalked, you're being harassed. So I started to look it up on the internet. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. You were looking it up on the internet?
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I honest to God, I mean, I really wanted to find out if this is happening to me. My thought was that it was happening to a lot of other people too, but I could not find it on the internet anywhere. And it literally took me 4 years to find it. I finally found it on I forget the exact URL. I should have had that ready. It's at the portlandmercury.com. And if you Google the term on the portlandmercury.com, it's on their blog, though, where somebody had left a feedback, and I'll paste that into the chat room here at talkshoe.com on my show number 120297. I'll paste that URL where I finally found it on post number 6. And I said, that's it. And the guy who wrote it said what is happening to him, and he was referring to the previous 5 posts, is he is encountering what many of us online are calling gang stalking. It was really well written, like 5 or 6 paragraphs that described essentially what was happening to me, and I've never looked back.
Wow.
But that's how I found it.
So going back to the corporations, now the corporations that you were being very vocal about, I know you don't want to name the names.
That is correct. I don't know why, but I just don't.
Well, what is the industry that they were in?
Yeah, I just don't want to. I'm sorry, I don't want to get more identifying than that. I'm sorry, but I mean, they just didn't want to be talked down. They looked at it as they were being talked down, but they were clearly being illicit. I mean, that's what they were doing.
Were they
retail,
involved with the government? Okay.
No, I don't think any more than any other retail establishment would be involved with the government.
Okay. But it just seems a little strange that, maybe a retail establishment, even if it was, say, Walmart or, Target or something big like that, on that kind of...
Yeah, it is somebody really big, yeah.
Okay. But if it was something along those lines, it just seems a little strange that they would want to...
I know. I could make it not strange, and I'm sorry, I'm just not ready to name them yet. I don't know why. I'm just not ready to name them yet. Because I can't, name them without outing myself. And I'm not ready to out myself just yet. I've gone live with my first name, Chuck, but I have not... I used to go by the name Van, or Vancouver, where I live. And I did that for a year and 10 months. And then finally, I decided when I go live with this new show that we're on now, that's got 10 recordings so far, that I'm going to go live with my real name, my real first name anyway. It's a step in the direction of full exposure.
Now, how long have you been living? You've been in Vancouver for how long?
Probably six years that I've been stalked. Probably about 7 years. I came down from the Seattle area where I lived before that time.
Okay. So, have you ever engaged in any of the recreational drugs?
No, nothing. No, nothing. Nothing. I have never done any drugs. Never will. Never broken any laws. I'm a street legal kind of a guy. I'm just outspoken. No, I've never. The answer to that is no, absolutely not.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is very interesting.
But you speak out. Let me tell you, if you speak out about a corporation, expect to be. You better do it on the sly, and you should, and you might get caught anyway, because these guys have immense resources, and it's just little old you to anybody who's listening in.
Right.
But I was honked.
Is the targeting continuing?
Actually, what is interesting, I was thinking about it. I restarted that's kind of a little bit of a longer answer. My last show here on TalkShoe was 87-161, and I had that on for a year and a few months, and I was like literally harassed, just damn near continually. It continued to happen to where they shut the call down. TalkShoe.com shut the call down, probably because who knows why. You don't need a reason why, but because of potentially profanity. But they shut down a lot of TI shows, a lot of targeted individual shows. The shows that they shut down, by the way, were not affiliated with the scumbags at Freedom SCHS. So if you're under their umbrella, which is an illicit umbrella, by the way, because they're targeters, they're out netting new targets. And if you show up, you get driven off. They tried to drive me off. One of the individuals at freedomschs.com tried to drive me off early on when I went live with my call at the end of August of 2010. I think I answered your question and then a whole lot more. Let me throw the ball back at you. Did I answer it, though?
Yeah, it does seem to be very complicated, to say the least, with what's going on here. And, it just seems that, because I don't know if you really have answered the question if the targeting is continuing.
Has the targeting continued? Yes, it has continued. I'm glad you got me back on the line you wanted to go on. When I restarted this call at the beginning of June of 2012 here, just a month ago, essentially, now that I think about it, the targeting has stopped. They're looking for Plan B. But before that time, it was essentially the people in the stores, the harassment where they want you to know you're being harassed, you're being surveilled, and they want you to know you're being surveilled and harassed, but not be able to prove it. And they don't make eye contact with you. And anybody who's being harassed and stalked should keep that in mind.
So it has stopped. And when do you think that it did stop? In 2010?
No. It went. In fact, if anything, when I discovered, keep this in mind, when you discover the term gang stalking, when you finally discovered the term gang stalking in May of 2010, it actually increased. And then when I found TalkShoe 3 months later, it increased again. And then when I started my show a couple of weeks later, it increased again. And then when I decided to really go great guns at the scumbags at Freedom SCHS, it increased to the point where you cannot prove anything that I just said, but it increased to the point where I think I was like food poisoned when I consumed food out of my apartment here in Vancouver, like on 3 occasions in early December of 2010. And in fact, if you listen to my recordings on TalkShoe show number 87161, if you listen to them before that time, pre-December 2010, I sound like a normal guy. My voice is probably shaking a little bit, but it was really bad after that. I mean, that's all I can tell you. What else do you want to know? And you get, tough as you want to get.
Yeah, because it started in 2006 because you were complaining about these different corporations.
That could be. It could have been going on probably before that time because I started the complaining about a corporation. It might have been other incidents that were involved. And I think it might be like I know this is crazy, but like a point system. Like, well, you get 2 points if you mess with your doctor, and you get 4 points if you mess with something else, So if you want to be outspoken, it's like they're making buck on you. It's like they've got this pool of, I don't know, but I'm just telling you what it feels like. They've got this pool of people that they can screw with. They've got so many dollars to harass people, and to decide who's going to be the chosen ones. There's a point system, and my bubble came to the top of the bottle on April 15, 2006.
Okay, so it may have started before 2006, but looking back on it, you really kind of became aware of it in 2010, and you're looking back on it, and you think that it started in 2006, maybe even before.
Now, I want to say, before in 2006, I hadn't had a parking, or rather a citation, a driving citation, just like a decade. It was just unheard of. I was a careful driver, but for God's sakes, I went like a whole decade, and all of a sudden, like in early 2006, this is before my targeting went live, I started getting pulled over all the friggin' time. It was like 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many times it was. I don't even remember what they were about. It was just constantly getting pulled over. Never got a ticket, except for one time I did get a ticket after the targeting went live. I did get a ticket. That's like the only one I had. But, and also another thing is that in like 2005, the weird things started to happen. Like I essentially split up with my girlfriend, and they will now. Things that I found out since are that they will work over any relationship that you have. That's one of the things that they do. Way before that, I had in the mid '90s, I think, I had a cop that lived right across the hall from me. And just keep that in mind, anybody who's targeted. If you've got a cop that's living across the hall from you, and if they're outside, it's called same time entry and exit. And he was just like always outside. I never thought about it. It's just he was a good old guy. He didn't make any qualms about what he did for a living, and what I care. It felt kind of good having a real life cop living across the hall. And also at the last place I lived 7-8 months ago by now, I had a cop living right next door to me, and that's, and I tried to tell him that and it was like, oh God, that I was being harassed, and I knew he was in on it because he was always out there. I was slowly coming to the realization of what was going on, So
now things that you brought up, I wanted to backtrack a little bit about them because you said this statement, the targeting went live. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
It went live. It went what somebody here calls go live in April of 2006, and that is when they want you to know, man, you granted, before that time, you were pulled over a lot and what have you, but now they want you to know. On tax day 2006, that's when they went live. And they went live, I mean, every time I go to the video store, there'd be somebody blocking the path that I wanted to go. It is every time I went to the video store, because that's what they do. They surveil you. And if it happened once, twice, 3 times, I mean, it happened every friggin' time I went to the video store. And every time I went to the grocery store. When those kinds of things continue to happen, that ought to be your... But I believe I've answered. Your question.
Because when you're looking back at it, that's when you realize that that's when it went live.
Yeah, that's Go Live. Is Alda is her name? Alda calls it Go Live, and that's a good thing to call it, because that's when they turned up the heat.
Now, who is this Alda?
She is a targeted individual that lives in California that I met, quote unquote, here on TalkShoe at TalkShoe.com, and essentially I recorded her 3 times, I think, on my last call, 87-161. And I mean, I believe she is a real TI, but a real targeted individual. What's funny is, and I'm going all over the place here, and I don't mind if you just interrupt and get me back on where you want to go. But one thing, they have a way of taking what I would call a pure TI and compromising them, and I don't know why she's never started her own call. She's got her website is sites.google.com/site/targeted stalked terrorized, all one word. Let me repeat that: sites.google.com/site/targeted stalked terrorized. And she has a lot of information. In fact, I thought enough of it that I did a reading of that site on one of my recordings here.
Okay. Now, when the cops were pulling you over all the time, what were they pulling you over for?
I don't know. I don't remember. It's like, and they didn't give me a ticket. Well, did you know you're not supposed to? Yeah, sorry, And I guess I talked my way out of it, but it just continued to happen. And it wasn't like I didn't start, I don't know. It just...
Right.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I can't be specific on that one.
Okay. Now, when you were how old when all of this happened?
When this started to happen, roughly, I'm in my 60s now, so I would have been like 55 or thereabouts. Probably about 54 when they started to pull me over. 53 when I was up in Seattle, and came down here, and it had started then. But way back, even before that, even back when I worked for a corporation, I was what you call workplace mobbed, and that is where a couple of different, and you can't put your finger on that. You literally can't prove it, but there were like a couple of the people that worked with me, and a couple of other different people that were always in there and just ask them to leave, and they'd leave, but sure as heck they'd come back the next day. It was like they were effing with me. It was just amazing, and now that's a reach. What I'm saying is what I have just described is a reach, but I think that possibly those are involved too.
So
you don't know. You can't. You don't get a registered letter that says, "Dear Chuck, here's the way it's going to be."
Right. But it just seems to be very interesting that you wrote some things on the internet about a corporation or corporations, and then you've been stalked for maybe 6 years?
For 6 years, go live. 6 years, go live.
And you've been harassed for 6 years. It seems to be I mean, you stop. It seems to be a little strange, a little unusual to say the least, that you would be.
Well, let me address that, because I think once you become stalked and harassed, I think it's for good. I think people that participate in that sort of thing need to know that that the target is in it for the long haul, and they don't know, the people that are doing the stalking and the harassing, they don't know whether the person that's involved is of noble intent, who's spoken out, who doesn't have this harassment coming, or if it's a bad guy. They don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I never interviewed them. I'm hoping they'll call in, though, and I can interview them, but I think they'll put themselves at risk by doing that. So I think it's the same forces that are involved in this. The same forces are involved, whether they're payback victim or payback targets being paid back, and I mean being paid back, or somebody who they have a legitimate concern about. I think it's the same band.
So it has stopped, and how long has it stopped? How long has the harassment stopped?
I would say for the last month, since I've gone live now with my new show. I really never thought that it would. It never entered my mind that it might stop. I don't have any. I have no illusions that it's not going to start up again, because it had stopped three times while it was going on. Like, it would stop for a couple of 3 days, and you think, God, it's over. Thank God. Where you could actually go to the store like a normal person and not be screwed with, or you could literally walk down the street and not have people stepping out in front of you. There's 1,000 stories I could tell like that, like people stepping out on the street, people clogging the street, always in the same place, and many times with different people.
Yeah. Because it seems strange, because maybe if somebody was to, if somebody were to target you in a different way, I mean, usually sometimes it's like people hanging up on something, calling and then hanging up, those types of situations.
I went through some of that. When I was up in Seattle, I went through a lot of that, a lot of hang-ups, a lot of people with wrong numbers that were rude, and you just think that's life in the big city, and it may have been. You don't know. By the way, I get a lot of calls on my cell phones here. A lot of course, I publish my numbers, So I don't make a. In fact, while I said that, why don't I say what the number is here?
Right. But and you've never done any drugs.
Never, not a thing.
What do you think of the psychiatric industry or the psychiatric community?
Well, that's one thing that I think perhaps they steered clear of me, because I've made note to you that I hung around with a space cult of Scientology for about 5 weeks. It was a number of decades ago. I just literally, you have to be rude to them. To get rid of them, you have to be rude. You have to get in their face, and you have to literally threaten them. You have to threaten to sue them. And if you threaten to sue them, they will go away. They will disappear. And I thought, God, that's great. They've disappeared. But what do I think of them? I don't have any respect for them. I probably thought more of them before this started to happen. But I don't, because they're in on this. If you tell them about it, they know about this protocol. They know about this targeting, and they're actually. Go ahead.
The psychiatric community is aware of this.
Oh, absolutely. The psychs, the cops. I saw an attorney about it when it first started to happen in 2006. I saw a handful, 3, 4, 5 attorneys and they don't know it. And I found out, well, there's different kinds of attorneys. So I stopped in to see this one attorney, and he took I put my business card down on the desk, and he spun it around and he looked at it, and he as soon as he saw my name come up on the screen, I guess, because it was facing at him, he literally got sweat beads on his forehead. And that's the one thing to keep in mind. This protocol of harassment and stalking drives people to their knees. Another one, I mean, he literally started yelling at the top of his lungs as soon as he saw my name on that screen. As soon as I showed him my card and with my name on it, he came unglued and he started walking around. He literally had sweat beads on his forehead. Smoothest attorney, and the reason I finally picked him was I realized, oh, you need a criminal defense attorney. You know, not that I have a lot of cash to throw at somebody like that, but he said, I suggest you see a you need to see a psychiatrist. And he started walking, pacing like as I've said before, like a schoolboy, back and forth. Another when I talked to somebody, I talked to a healthcare worker that just on a routine visit for myself, and
yeah. Hello.
Sorry about that. I have to turn this phone down. But go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Somebody just tried to messing with me. They're calling, trying to interrupt this call. What do you say?
You were saying that somebody was calling you or something like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Somebody just called me on the cell phone number that I published, and I just muted the phone so that if they call again, it'll be muted, so that we can put the priority on this. So just letting you know what happened there.
Okay. But you were saying about the psychiatric community. Now, the psychiatric community is aware of this TI protocol?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The cops are aware. The psychs are aware. The healthcare worker that I saw, they're aware. She was the healthcare worker that I talked to, and I said I'm being harassed. And by the time I saw her, I had actually wised up to the term gang stalking. And what I didn't realize at the time was you don't want to mention this to healthcare workers, or they'll have you committed. They will have you committed if you claim to have this type of thing happen to you. They will do whatever they need to do to have you put away. And I didn't know that at the time, so it would have been, that meeting would have been right around May of, shortly after May of 2010 when I discovered that, now that I think about it. Or I discovered this term on the internet.
Right. Have you ever, have you ever come close to being committed?
No, nothing like that. Never, ever. No, I've been gainfully employed all my life, and self-employed now, and for the last number of years. So no, it's never been an issue. But I understand that a lot of people have had that type of thing happen. But I think what they do, I think they're just gonna harass the living crap out of you. You know, if you're targeted, they're coming at you. So go ahead, ask those questions, those tough questions.
All right, because that's the whole thing. I mean, it just seems to be, it's just a little, it seems to be, okay, you found out in 2006, so you started in 2006, and you look back at 2010, you realize that this has been going on, and now it's stopped for about a month or so.
Right, since I started the show up again.
Right, but why do you think that is, that they're not targeting you anymore?
I think it's because I have no idea what goes through their minds, but I think it's because I'm raising so much Cain about it, and I'm a lot more proficient at raising the Cain than I am. I mean, if you listen to my recordings on 87161 and listen to my recordings now, more matter of fact, I'm I don't put up with a lot of nonsense, which happens to you, by the way. There is a literal army of people that don't want the word about organized stalking to get out. There's a literal army of people. And by the way, on TalkShoe, they center around Freedom SCHS. They center, and what they do, they crazy talk. They talk about wild, crazy, unachievable, wild and woolly stuff. But I don't encounter any of that. I just have encountered people, boots on ground people that have been involved in the harassment.
Yeah, and now that you have not had this targeting for harassment for a month, but there's no real way that you can see that it's going to end. But
yeah, I would have to say I have had some same-time entry and exit. I have had some from my abode here, where I'm living. I have had some as each time when I come, or not each time, but many times when I come or go. There's always
thinking, whatever you wrote about this corporation, whatever corporation or corporations it was, I mean, this must have been some sort of a scandalous thing that you were publishing about them.
Yeah, it was absolutely true. It is absolutely true, and it's in plain sight. And anybody that has their head where the sun don't shine, I mean, anybody that is looking for it can see it. And I'm so sorry that I'm not gonna say who it is right now.
Right.
But it's
what kind? Yeah, but it was in retail. We understand that much. But I mean, what kind of things were you alleging about this retail corporation?
They're shysters. They put up signs that are intentionally fraudulent. They put up signs that can be taken two ways. They're so well worded, and that you assume it to be this, but in fact, it's that. I don't know how to say it any more clear than I've just said it. That there's ways to write a sign that sound pure. Go ahead.
Like a bait and switch. They bring you in for something, they advertise one deal, and then they bring you in, and then they say, well, that deal is over, but here's something else.
Or they put it up early and take it down late. I haven't read that write-up in a long time, but it was like 6 or 8 different things that they do that are all different. They're all scandalous. In each one, and that's one of them, was to put it up late or take it down early. Put it up before it starts and leave it up after it finishes, and that way, when it gets up to the checkout register, it rings up at such a price, and they're not looking. The customer, and they're going so fast. They're going so fast that the customer is not really paying attention. And you don't really notice it until you get out of the store. But when you get out of the store, it's too late. Oh, well, that's okay. It was only $1 or $2 per item that I bought, so never mind. And the next time, it's the same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
But
it just seems. Yeah. Okay. It just seems that okay, that's just something that look, a lot of people have complained about over the years. It doesn't seem to be anything so scandalous that would require you to be targeted and harassed for like 6 years.
I don't know whether a lot of people are going to write a web page up on it, though, and improve it every time they hear about it. I don't know of a lot of people who are going to put so much effort into outing what they're doing.
Right. And did you name any names? I mean, besides the corporation itself, did you
No, I did not. But because that's not pertinent, is because the people that are there are doing their job. They're just working their 9 to 5 or whatever it is that they're working, and it's not their fault. In fact, they kind of are half apologetic. This isn't the first time they've heard it. It's like, yeah.
Right, I'm thinking about the people within the corporation who may have created this scandal and created this scheme.
Well, I'm saying it's like up at the head office.
Right. Well, I'm thinking that maybe you may have named names on that level.
No, I never named names. because I never wanted to get sued. It's just, they're going to deal with this, and I do really do.
You got harassed for 6 years. I mean, it probably would have been better if you got sued. But at least if you got sued, you would have been.
Well, they wouldn't have anything to sue me on because I was telling the truth. What I'm saying is this couldn't have been the first time they heard it. And the guy who, again, was, I should have saved the emails, but who was talking about, really, you don't want to do this. He was almost trying to talk me out of doing it, F you, man. You guys are dirt. It's like, well, yeah, but, it depends on how you look. I don't know. What I'm saying is, to me, it was non-negotiable. There's one other thing I want to say about that corporation. Let me say this, because this is really pertinent. When I got back to Vancouver and finally sold off my RV, which they killed, by the way. You don't really know, but like 6 things went wrong with it. When I got back to Vancouver, I thought, God, where could this be coming? And it followed me. It followed me from one RV place to the next RV place. My RV died. When I finally got back to Vancouver, I thought, God, where could this be coming? I wonder if it's these guys. So I took the document down, and you know what? The targeting went away. It went away for like 3 months, and I don't remember the exact months. That probably a couple of 3 months off duration, and then I got to thinking, God, if that's true. If that is what they were doing, if they were effing with me, if they effed with, now I'm mad. Now I'm really mad. So then I put the document back, and I put twice as much work into polishing it and making it so that it could only be understood one way. And again, I'm not a professional writer, but I worked on it hard.
Right.
But by the way, when I put the document back, when I reengaged my harassment of them, the harassment of me continued in kind. So I'm pretty sure that it is that corporation. But you don't know, And the corporation probably doesn't know. They weren't into the day-to-day detail of it. They just said, okay, we have so many brownie points to use, and we'll use them on Chuck. He's our guy.
Yeah, so that guy was calling you and trying to persuade you to take it down? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was some guy via email. I don't know why and how I even allowed myself to get into a discussion with him. To an email discussion, I don't even know why I did that. I don't know if I have the emails or not anymore. And who knows whether he was with them or somebody. It was probably with somebody else. It was kind of like he was trying to just talk some sense into me, trying to talk me into stop this, stop. It was he played like a guy who just found this document that I had written, and I was big, tough Chuck, I wasn't trying to hide who I am. Because at the time, I didn't realize that you better watch it. I didn't realize that. I didn't know about this thing called targeting.
Right.
I had no concept about it.
So this guy from the corporation actually contacted you.
You don't know if he was from the corporation, or I assume he was not. I assume he was with somebody else who was just trying to get me to shut up. And that really infuriated me.
So it was somebody who was, so you don't know who it was, but it was somebody who was just trying to say to you, hey, take that thing down that you were writing about this corporation.
Yeah, and again, when I got back to Vancouver, I did take it down. The harassment went away, and this was pre-May of 2010, so the harassment did go away. And that really infuriated me. And you can't prove it. You can't prove that this guy was working for this corporation in a way, or for who knows who he's working for. You don't know that. You don't know that the corporation knew anything about it. They just said, "Hey, shut this guy up." Is the way I took it.
Yeah. Right. Now, before we were talking a little bit about mental health and about the psychiatric. You have gone to mental health professionals before, right?
Never, ever. The only health professional that I saw was somebody about another issue that I had or whatever you want to say, but it was not anything to do with mental health at all. No, I've never, ever been to a mental health professional, ever.
Okay. Well, all right, because...
Go ahead and get as tough as you want. Go ahead. Come at me.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that maybe, what do you think of the whole thing, of the concept of the mental health profession?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, I fought more of them before this thing started than I do now. And the thing that I hear about now is that they're in on this organized stalking, that they know about this organized stalking, that they participate in it, and they intentionally don't wise up people. So what do I think about them? I think less of them now that I'm wiser. Post May 2010, since I've researched more into them, I think less of them than anything. So.
Right. It just seems, okay.
Go ahead, get tough. I don't care.
Well,
I'm asking you to. I want you to. There's people out there that are listening. They want you to get in my face right now. Get in my face, please. I'm asking you to.
Yeah, because, the thing is like, if you've never gone to a mental health professional and you are somewhat scared of them or you believe that they're in on the whole thing, normally people, if they have a situation like this, they would seek some sort of outside help on this, and you're unable to because of the situation that you're in.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't have an issue with it. I've never seen them. I'm gonna do my best never to have to see them. What I can tell you though is, if anybody who Googles the term gang stalking or organized stalking, that is going to be one thing that they're going to find. That if you speak to a mental health professional, their objective is to get you thrown into the funny farm. That's what I've heard. So I would have no reason to talk to them. What was interesting though is when I did mention.
They would probably diagnose you with some form of paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Because I'm not a mental health professional at all in any way whatsoever. So I'm not, this is completely a layman's perspective that I'm giving. But if you did speak to someone who did have some knowledge about this and had degrees in this, and you saw them as a professional, they might diagnose you with that.
Yeah, they probably will. That's my understanding, is that they probably will, and they will damn well know. By the way, they will know what that they're full of crap. That I really believe that they will know. In fact, their job may depend on diagnosing this guy with some disorder or whatever. I don't have a lot of faith in their integrity. Let's put it that way. So, and I'm not even talking about the Scientology crap from a long time ago, because
you were only in Scientology for like 5 weeks. How?
Yeah, but that was a long 5 weeks. I'm telling you. But what I'm telling you is they continually run down the mental health institute. They continually, and I think that is probably part of the reason why if they've got some makeup of me on the screen, why they're laying low on me, because they know I'm tough-minded and they're not going to get out of me I don't know what they want, but they're not going to get it. Once again, if you Google those terms, this is not just this targeting. If you Google these terms, this is it happens to a lot of people who are outspoken. That's one thing that they have in mind, in common rather, is that they're outspoken people who are not afraid to speak their mind. And I had no idea that you could be stalked and harassed and mobbed. I had no idea. And the people that are doing the stalking, harassing, and mobbing, they don't know why. They're sick on somebody and they just unleash, and they're good at it. Another thing I should point out is that early on, back when it first started, I went out and got a camera, and I took pictures of them. And they hate it, by the way. When you shove a camera in their face, they absolutely hate to have their picture taken. And so I've got a number of pictures. So I have no doubt that I was being harassed or mobbed. Although, if I were to try to use that film in a court of law, people would say, this looks like, and they would say, quote unquote, life in the big city to me, except it's every time you go to the store or get to the end of the aisle or walk down that certain street or walk out your door of your apartment, and there's the last place, and there's people in one of 4 or 5 units that were always coming and going, or like in this place, when I come and go, there's always the same couple of people.
Yeah.
But, that could be coincidence.
Because a lot of that stuff would be circumstantial evidence. Like, if you were to that same court of law, they would...
You're not gonna... We're talking about professionals that are professional head screwers here. That's what they do. They're professional head screwers. And by the way, I want to interview them. They can call me Chuck on TalkShoe.com, show number 120297, and I'm on all the time here in July of 2012. Go ahead.
Now the whole thing is like, if you were to, I see the thing is like, okay, all right, if you were to go to you can't go to a mental health professional because you don't trust them, and
hell no, you can't trust them. If you talk to a mental health quote unquote pro about this issue, you talk to them about this issue, they're going to have you you are going to be committed if you talk to them about it. There's no way you're going to get out of there without getting taken in.
Right. But maybe you could speak to somebody who might be able to because it seems to me, like if you were stalked, if this started 6 years ago, and you were somebody who just wrote something about a corporation, and you weren't naming specific names, you were just naming practices that the corporation was doing.
Yeah, it wasn't just naming practices. I mean, it was down and dirty. It was some really dirty stuff. There was some verbiage in there that's really incendiary, and I was pretty good at it. I'm a lot better at it now, but I was pretty good then.
But like, what else is that we're talking about instead of just practices like the bait and switch type of thing, which is very.
What I'm telling you is they make a hell of a lot of money on that. That's how they make. That could be the difference in bottom line profit. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm telling you, it was huge. I'm telling you, anytime they ran a sale item, it was a scam. Right. I'm telling you, it wasn't just some bait and switch. I mean, it was big money, big dinero.
Okay. And so for that reason, that's why they had to silence you.
It was payback time. I guess, I guess it was payback time. I don't know. You can't prove that either. You really can't prove anything. What I'm telling you, though, is gang stalking is real, and it is huge. And, God darn it. Keep going, though.
Because I could understand, like, gang stalking going on for a specific time for somebody who is outspoken about a specific issue. And maybe
what I'm saying is there's no specific time about it. What I'm saying is it happens. It happens when it starts to happen. It happens. As I believe it now that I've studied up into this for almost 2 years that I've been aware now. It happens for life. They're literally going to F you to death. That's what they do. One thing I do want to say something on police and, on publicintelligence.net. On publicintelligence.net. I wish I knew I'm going to read this real quick. publicintelligence.net/FBI-suspicious-activities-reporting-flyers. Let me say it again real quick. publicintelligence.net. FBI suspicious activity reporting flyers, and put a dash in between each one of those words, and you will find there's like 20 to 25 different types of situations. Pardon me? 25. Yeah, let's not get into it right now. But there's 25 different flyers that are out there, and I can only assume that there's a ton more that people are stalked and harassed and mobbed. You know what I'm telling you is just look that up and make up your own mind. It's not just me. This is something that I just found out about in the last 4 or so days ago.
Interesting. Because that will be something to check out and maybe talk to you a little bit more about later. But I don't know. It just seems to be, I mean, if you can't get the help, but then you're just.
Let me say that about the help. All avenues, when this happens to you, when you are a TI, a targeted individual, all avenues to help are cut off. You cannot get help, and not only that, they cut off your relationships with in my case, with my girlfriend, with friends, you're essentially, you cannot make friendships. When you're standing there on a street corner and you're striking up a conversation with a stranger, it's like you're literally, now I don't blame you for raising your eyebrows on this, because this does sound a little bit wacky, so it's up to you. And it's up to the people that are listening to this MP3 file, which, by the way, once again, is in the public domain, what you're saying and I'm saying, for all eternity. So they're going to be listening to this 100 years from now and deciding on whether this type of thing happens.
Right.
When you're being harassed, it's go ahead.
It is a tough situation, because normally the type of operation that you're talking about would only be normally associated with governments targeting specific political activists and that type of thing. But in this situation, we're talking about a corporation that's targeting somebody who was just talking about
corporation with deep pockets, yeah.
Deep pockets, yeah. So this is something that and you're talking about their business practices.
What I'm saying is there is an infrastructure in this country, in this world, actually, because you literally can't. I moved from one city to another in Oregon in my RV. When I moved across the state line, across the Columbia River, back up here to Vancouver, it followed me. When I went from one apartment building to the next and to the one I'm at now, it follows you. All you're going to do by moving is deplete your financial reserves.
Maybe what you're talking about is a concept more than more than anything else.
Well, what do you mean by that concept?
Well, all right. In your specific case, it's a corporation that's going after you because you spoke out about their practices. But
they're the ones I think they're the ones that put the hex on you. They're just using an existing infrastructure. This infrastructure, those people it doesn't have that corporation's name on their ID badges. It's just the people. When I go from one area of town to another, when I've gone, rather, from one area of town to another, the harassment has followed me when I've gone down to Portland.
Right, but this could be something that can be applied not only to your case, but to other people's cases as well. You know, political activists, police activists, what have you. You know, people who are generally outspoken about issues.
Yeah, I think when you're in a certain area of town, the chances of me being in a certain area of town and a political activist and a police activist, what have you, the chances of it being the people in this quote-unquote gang or whatever you want to call it being the same people are pretty significant. But the other thing that I want to say is that I have seen, I have sensed, 6 different types of people that were involved depending on where you're at. You know, that if you're on Main Street in Vancouver, or if you're down in Portland on the Max, or if you're on, literally another time I talked about, if I'm on I-205 going across the bridge and you're mobbed by cars. I mean, there's different types of people that are involved in it depending on where you are.
So what are the 6 types of people?
The 6 types of people, one would be the kind that was down on Main Street in Vancouver. A lot of unemployed people probably. Another type would be people in my last apartment building in the hallway that are fairly well-to-do because it was a nice joint. Another type would be people that looked like they were working stiffs. I mean, you know, they had plaid shirts on at a bus stop where I was at. You know, they didn't look, they looked employed. They didn't look homeless, I'll tell you that. Another one was when I moved my RV from where it first kicked off, the go live, if you will, when I moved it, and my landlord flipped on a dime. He got really angry with me all of a sudden. God, what is this all about? I haven't said anything. And it was a landlord from hell. So I moved out. I moved to the next place. And you know, RVs are fairly easy to move somebody in. So they moved 2 in next to me within a month. You know, same time entry and exit, same thing again.
So this seems to be, this seems to be a situation. So there were 4 that you've already named. What the other 2?
Another one would be out at the Vancouver Mall. That would be the 5th one. Another one would, and those were, I'd say middle-aged. I was going to say yuppies, but middle-aged. It's like they got a message on their phone that says show up to this eyeglasses store, you know. And as soon as I walk in there, the place floods with people. Is that weird or what? Another one was the kind of people that were blocking the exit at a video store. When I was walking out, they were 25-ish with short-sleeve shirts, looked like they stepped out of a church training or some insurance company or God knows what.
You ever see this whole concept? There was this thing that came out a couple of years ago with the what was it? They were using SMS to coordinate
flash mobs.
That's it. Thank you. Yes, flash mobs. I mean, you have.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening, I want you to Google that term, flash mobs, because in my estimation, that's what happened. Another one was at a church that I went to. I go there at midday, and one day though in particular, a whole bunch of people flooded in. God, what was that about? So that was 3 situations. One was at the video store. One was at the eyeglasses store at Vancouver Mall. And the third one was, I'm sorry, I lost it. I forget. Oh, at the church. You know, it was where people would just show up, poof, out of nowhere, and I mean a gaggle of them. I mean, it's like, God, it was like the people that were standing in front of the door. I literally couldn't open the door at the video store on Highway 99 in Portland South, Highway 99 South in Portland, and I literally had to push the door slowly and then put my hand on the shoulder of a couple of guys to push them. There was like half guys, half girls, and whew, they all split in different directions, and they disappeared. I thought, God, that is weird. That is effing weird. And I got back to my vehicle, and I sat there and I rubbed my eyes, and I thought, God, did I just see that? And there's nobody there to be seen. They were just all gone. That was the weirdest one of all, and that was really early on in my stalking and harassment. So there's just people, and I'm not saying that that they knew what they were doing. Those people that were participating, they didn't. Well, they knew that they were head screwing, and they were like enjoying it, and they were keeping a straight face. And the other thing too that I wanted to say about that, leaving the video store that one time, was when I went in, I rented my video or two, and as I'm walking out of the door, there's like 20 people blocking the door, standing outside, all talking to each other at the top of their voice, nose to nose. The craziest thing you ever saw, and they're carrying on conversations with God knows what they were talking about, and then poof, they all disappeared. Craziest thing you ever saw, and that's a flash mob. And actually, you know where I got that term? I explained that to one guy at a convenience store that I used to go to, and he said that's a flash mob, and I'd never heard that term before. And so I wrote it down on my hand right away so I didn't forget it. And I got back home and I Googled it, and sure as heck, that's what was happening. It was a flash mob. And then I realized that guy eventually, he got turned into that testing 1 2 news guy.
Hello.
News guy.
Yeah, for some reason I got hung up on, and then I had to call back in.
Okay, well, I was talking about a flash mob.
Yeah, I heard everything that you said because I was just in the chat, but I was listening to what you were saying. So it is.
Okay, I'm glad I looked back at the tube then because I unmuted you. Please continue.
Thanks. But, you know, that's the whole thing. The flash mob, that did come from something. You know, it is very interesting to see that these concepts get applied to what you've experienced on some level. You know, it is very interesting to see this, but you know, it is very. I mean, it is very. At the same time, it is still head scratching to understand.
I know. I don't blame you, man. I don't blame. That's why I want you to be as tough as you want to be, because people are expecting that.
Yeah, because
people listening to this recording 100 years from now are expecting you, newsman, to really pour on the coal. So I'm not asking you to take it easy on me.
Okay, because that's the whole thing. I mean, listen. I mean, if somebody is saying, "All right, listen, I can understand this if this is a political activist, you know, left-wing activist, right-wing activist," but this guy was just talking about different, you know, practices of some company somewhere, some chain store somewhere. You know, why are they going to target him for 6 years to silence him? I mean,
they're going to target you to death, man. Well, that's what I think. I think when you get put on this list, you're on it for eternity. You're going to die this way.
But that really doesn't seem to be something that they would target you for 6 years and drive you into some sort of place where you are isolated from everybody, and you know, I mean, because they could just as easily at this point. For example, there have been people who have had their information posted on the internet, pictures of themselves posted on the internet, and they've been able to take down websites very successfully just through copyright control arguments. And so what they could do. I mean, so there are different mechanisms for these corporations to just silence you without having to drive you into some sort of, some sort of place where you're isolated.
I don't know what it would be. I was not going to shut up. They pissed me off so much. I'm still not going to shut up.
Right.
I have had, it took me 4 years of my life of being targeted and harassed and stalked and mobbed. It took me 4 years to finally catch on to the term gang stalking. Google that term, organized stalking. It took me so long, and I'm not just going to shut up about it. Most people would. And by the way, I think a lot of people do shut up about it. And a lot of people have showed up here on TalkShoe.com on these shows, and they show up on like the skank calls on Freedom FCHS, and they talk about it, and they get mobbed. They get driven away with crazy talk. These people over there, they start talking unachievable nonsense, crazy talk, and they're driven away. And I decided no crazy talk on my call. I'm not letting them talk about that off-the-wall nonsense. If it doesn't happen to me, it doesn't get talked about.
So you think that these guys, like the Freedom FCH, which is also another talk show, and they're not really an organization, are they?
They claim to be. I think they're paid perps. I think they're a bunch of paid scumbags. That's a scumbag operation. They're on like every night with hidden calls. I'm going to read some numbers here. Call number 66339 is Derek's Saturday night call. Filthy Joe's nightly call Sunday through Thursday is 89899, and his is hidden. You got Jay Wojciechowski as a call, and Nigel. And I really do consider all those people to be perps, because they talk about the wackiest, farthest out stuff. And none of that crazy stuff ever happened to me, and they get so annoyed with me for not being willing to accept their story, and I just don't believe it. I think they're liars. I don't think they're crazy, by the way. I think they're making it up.
I mean, just to briefly get into it, I mean, because really we're focusing on you, but I'm curious, what kind of crazy stuff are they talking about over there?
Yeah, I'm just not gonna get into it. And the reason I don't, I know. You can talk yourself blue. I'm not gonna get into the examples. Okay. And the reason I'm not is because that just makes my call another crazy talk call. So I learned early on not to talk about just to let people know, if you're listening to a call and they're talking about some wild and woolly, wacky stuff, everything that I have said is earthly. It's far-fetched, I'll grant you that, but it's earthly, it's achievable. The stuff they talk about over on those crazy talk calls is way off the deep end, and they do it non-stop. And if anybody wants to show up and talk about normal stuff, like I'm talking about, they get flooded. They get flooded away with the wacky talk. That's their job, as near as I can tell. That's their job. That's their purpose in life, is that there is not only this thing called organized stalking, but it is a secretive protocol, I think, by and large, by secret societies that inflicted on people. And they don't talk about it. There's no talk about it. The same people that essentially killed Martin Luther King Jr., one of the greatest Americans who ever lived, the same people that killed him are the same branch of people that are doing this. They don't talk about it. You don't hear the details about it. But
that gets into some really weird conspiracy theories. I mean, if you're talking about things like that, I mean, you kind of like, you open up a whole new Pandora's box of things about secret societies and Illuminati and all that.
I didn't say the I word, but what I'm telling you is, I thought, where in the hell are they getting these people? How can they do that? How can they come up with all of these effing people nonstop? Every time I go down this street, there's people that clog my pathway. It's like, and they're always different, and they never talk to you. How do they do that? I think a lot of it is churches. Believe it or not, I really do. I think they tell lies to, I guess, to the churches, to the people that are involved. To get them to participate. Well, this guy is a pedophile and he has it coming, so you should join us and harass this guy because he's a bad character. And after all, you wouldn't want your kids. Let me tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about this one guy, and I don't know his name, but it was down at Esther Short Park. And I ran into him one day, and he lived in one of the buildings there, and I lived in another one. And he talked about he was talking one day. It was like he was whipping a line on me. He showed me the perp hand. Now, this guy had stalked me on a number of occasions. So I knew he was a perp, but I was carrying on the conversation. And he was talking about the fire extinguisher at the end of one of the hallways was missing. And we do want to stop the fire extinguishers from disappearing, don't we? And we do want to, it was kind of like he was building up the ammunition. He was laying the line on me. It's like he forgot who I was. But he was kind of like, it was like he was trying to recruit me to become a stalker. Yeah, it was like the craziest. It was like, I don't know why he was doing it. It's like he slipped, his mind slipped when he did that one time. There was another guy, and he's in this room right now, and I'm not going to say his name, but one time he was in his room. He's a perp. He's with freedomschs.com, and one day he was telling stories about me, and every story, like 5, maybe it was 4, maybe it was 6 stories. And he'd just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and every story had an element of truth to it, and he'd mix it with lies and omissions. He'd add lies and he'd leave things out to paint me in the worst light. And I thought, God. And I was logged into his room as a guest, and listening to him tell these stories, and it was like he screwed up. He showed me the perp hand. He totally screwed up by, and he took things that I was actually proud of, my proud achievements, and he would make them sound bad just by exaggerating and by leaving things out. That's how perps get. That's how they recruit other people to join their cause. It was an amazing thing. So there's like 2 people that I seen, 2 perps, clearly perps, no doubt about it, that showed me their hand. Why they did it, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's up to you whether you.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. I'm thinking that there's a lot of stuff that you've brought forward, and it is very, very fascinating to say the least. And we'll have to definitely think about this, what you're talking about. And, so it really is. Even though this is applied to you, this can be applied to other people and to other situations.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What I want people to know that are listening to this is that it's not just about me. I can't be bought now. There's no way. I want to get this story out about organized stalking, that it does take place in this world, and that targets, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but they are turned into stalkers. Targets become stalkers, and when they do, they're not coming back. That's been my experience, and I'm in a unique position here because I've been hanging around TalkShoe.com on these shows every night for, a year and 10 months now, give or take. And most of the time running my own show, and a lot of times listening into the other targeted individual calls. So I come at it from a different perspective, and I've had the opportunity of hearing these 2 scumbags spew their stuff. The one who was, it was like he was trying to recruit me, and this other guy who was slandering me, not realizing I was sitting there listening to him. I don't know whether he wrote that script himself or whether somebody else wrote it. It's like somebody took a class. It's like somebody can listen to an achievement of somebody and say, well, how can we turn that negative? Let's turn that negative. Let's paint him in the worst possible way. That's a totally amazing thing.
Right. That's very, very interesting. Well, Van, Chuck, I really appreciate this. I mean, I think that this has been very good, and it's been very enlightening, and it really gives a lot of insight into what you've been going on and what you've experiencing, and we'll just have to maybe do some more follow-ups on this as well.
Okay, and once again, my name is Chuck. This is TalkShoe show number 120297. That's TalkShoe.com. It's, July 7 or something like that, 2012. And call me anytime to get to let this happen. Is there anything that you want to say about this news, man? Any other questions that you want to ask?
Not any more questions right now, but I'm pretty sure they'll have some follow-ups on this.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and hit the end button on this recording. That's the end. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.